There we go. Welcome, everybody, to Bother the Father. Again, this is an open forum, kind of any question you might have. Hopefully, I have an answer. If I don't, I'll go to try to find out. So, with that being said, let's go and open the floor to any questions or maybe.
Got a quick one. I just don't understand this term, and maybe you could tell me it.
Uh-oh.
So, the Pink Sisters have these cards. It says, I'm going to unite my prayers with the Pink Sisters who at this very moment are kneeling in your August presence.
Oh, yeah. So August is a term, like, so the word August, right? Typically means happy, serene, right? Serenity, happiness. So like the term. So sometimes like we get these terms and like there'll be people named after them. So like Augustine, right? Saint Augustine, he was named that because, well, they wanted to be happy. Now he was happy, I guess, for a while. He found true happiness. So yeah, the word August is really kind of more from the Latin. Really would be something like happiness or serenity or something like in that realm. The problem is a lot of times too, with Latin especially, you get the word by basically the context, because the same Latin word maybe has several different meanings. But you'd have to get from the context in that regard. In this regard, we would say, yeah, the pleasant, the serene, the happy presence of our Lord. It can be translated in any of those ways, really. And August too. I mean, August sort of like this time of summer where like at least the hottest parts are over. It's kind of this like middle ground between fall and
winter, and things are nice and even out,
yeah,
and everything that you're going to eat is now ripe.
Right. And in general, I mean, that'd be great. In St. Louis, that may be different. I mean, because our weather is so weird. But in most places, August usually is rather nice time to be in the outdoors, which is also why usually in Rome, the Vatican especially, usually take off the entire month of August. So it's usually a big vacation time, which maybe has ancient roots. Who knows, right? So yeah. Good.
Well, that's a European custom, because when I was stationed in Germany, the little town that we were near, and that might have been August, whatever, they shut down for 2 weeks. Everything shut down. I mean, nothing stayed open. Like here, you got a holiday. Well, maybe it's a holiday, maybe it's not a holiday. This business might be open, that one might be closed. Everything shuts down.
Right. Well, I mean, and I mean, we're talking about shutting down. When I was working in Charleston, we had a lot of we had an Italian company they were supporting, and if you needed to get an answer in August, you had to wait till September. So if there was something that came up on July 31st and you had to send it in on August 1st, you weren't getting an answer back until September 1st.
Yeah.
That's just how it was. So it's like, okay, whatever.
Whatever floats your boat, I guess.
Well, again, I mean, these customs, these traditions, everyone has them. Every culture has like these different ways. How it goes. Yeah. I just actually looked it up, the word August, which means, venerable, majestic. Venerable or majestic. It was named in honor of Emperor Augustus when the month was renamed from Sextilis in 8 BC, commemorate his significant victories. So it was named after Emperor Augustus, and then that's usually how those work. So usually an emperor's name, then kids take those names too.
Cool.
So yeah.
Any reason why the Apostle Creed and the Nicene Creed are so similar?
Well, I mean, I think they profess the same belief. So, I mean, one would argue that. Well, okay, let's look at this way.
I always mess them up, and that's I get just like, oh my gosh.
Well,
right?
I mean, the reason I think that the Nicene Creed is longer is it has more detail, and the reason it has more detail is because there were certain questions being asked, and there were heresies popping up, right?
And that's what the Council of Nicene,
right? Well, Nicene. Well, actually, yeah. Technically, in the Mass, we don't say the Nicene Creed. We say the Nicene Constantinopolitan Creed. And the reason is because if we just had the Nicene Creed, we actually wouldn't be professing as much about the Holy Spirit, right? In Constantinople, which was the third or fourth Vatican Council, that's when they got more clarification on on Holy Spirit, right? So if you look historically what these councils were doing, there wasn't really a council for the first 300 years, because if you had a council, they'd probably kill you. There were maybe synods going on, that kind of stuff, but there wasn't necessarily like a gathering of all the bishops of the world to kind of determine these things. So what tended to happen in these first 300 years, you had these different thoughts about, well, how can Jesus be God and man? It's got to be one or the other. That doesn't really work. You can't have two natures. How does that work? And one person, and then, this understanding of the Trinity. Okay, so if Jesus is created, where's the Holy Spirit come in? How does that work? How do they play with each other? It's a very so there was a lot of theories that came out, and they were really coming from two main schools. One was in Alexandria, the other one was in Antioch. And in these schools, that's where they were kind of training people. They were teaching philosophy, but also that's where a lot of the priests and the bishops were coming from, at least the educated ones. So by the time the 4th century came around and Christianity was legal, there was a lot of questions. Hey, what about these guys who believe that Jesus gave some special knowledge just the apostles, and you're not a true Christian unless you had this knowledge called Gnosticism? Well, right, like, no, that doesn't. And as a matter of fact, there was even gospels written that were credited to certain apostles like Thomas that were probably developed just to promote these Gnostic tendencies, right? Of course, Thomas died way before this book came, but there was a lot of that going on, and which is why we don't have 40 different gospels, because when those gospels were written, they were all either couldn't be attributed to the person that wrote it,
Right.
or they were upholding certain things just like that doesn't seem in line with what the apostles have been handed down from generation to generation. But as we can imagine, there's still these kind of philosophical things that could be questioned. And so, like when we do OCIA, when we talk about the Trinity, one of the questions I kind of posit to our candidates and catechumens is, well, is heresy good or bad? And the answer to that is both, because heresy helps the church develop her doctrine better and better understand these things. Heresy is only heresy when it's actually obstinate, right? So once the council, once the Pope, once it's been clarified what the truth is, anyone who still holds that position would be, by definition, a heretic. Which is why also, because of these things, it takes so long, because, well, if you have the right person that you're talking to that actually has some influence, and your idea seems, understandable to that person, especially if they're in maybe an authority like an emperor or a senator or something like that, well, maybe they can influence things, make things a little bit harder for those other groups that don't necessarily see the same thing, and start promulgating a little bit more. Well, that's why some of these heresies still persisted, and really they still persist today. They just really take different forms, right? But for those first, let's say even 500 years, that was really what the church was doing. It's like, okay, Mary, is she the mother of God or the mother of Christ? Well, if Jesus is God, she has to be the mother of God. And so a lot of these things took years to debate and come up with, and they were voted upon and they were kind of presented. And what really defined it, though, was when the Pope actually promulgated it. So once the Pope said, here's what the church teaches, that's it. So yeah, the creed wasn't finalized, so to speak, until the Council of Constantinople, which happened 406 AD, I think. Let me go check that out. Right. So that's why it's a little bit longer, because it has more clarification in it, right? Oh, that's weird.
Snow.
Snow.
What's that?
It sounded like snow.
Oh, that was the sync, I think.
Oh, okay.
I can't look it up, Myra. Something's going on with the internet. Whatever. Hopefully my stream is still going. Looks like it is. Okay, so I don't know. Whatever. Bing lets me down. That's fine. Yeah, I think it was 406. I think it was Constantinople. So again, you're talking about Chalcedon 371, Ephesus 351. Yeah, I think it was 406. So yeah, these things were kind of developed over time. And so because we're the Catholic Church, we want to be very clear in what we teach, we strive to be, it seems more prudent to use the Nicene Constantinopolitan, because that actually reveals more. Apostles' Creed, though, is still good. It's if you were professing the Apostles' Creed, you would still be a Christian. We would still, yeah, you're professing everything the church teaches. Good. The concept will just kind of put some more in detail.
And it does.
Right.
It does.
And at some point, it was actually like promulgated that this is the only creed that needs to be that should be professed at Mass, right? Because this gives better clarity. We want to make sure we're all on the same page. Because those Arians over there, they profess the Apostles' Creed, and So yeah, that's the reason why. Just more
Anywhere
clarity.
you go, you could get either one of them.
Well, here, I mean, that's the thing in the Mass now, you could use either one. I mean, if, usually during Easter season, it would be proper to use the Apostles' Creed more.
My son belonged to St. Rose, and they always use the charter one.
Sure.
The priests there
Sure.
always use the charter.
Which is totally fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know if there was any. I didn't know that one would be politically better than the other.
I mean,
I didn't,
yeah.
like in the road.
I don't know politically. I mean, again, I think it's
Yeah.
just more clarity.
I didn't know you
Yeah.
could hurt somebody's feelings or not with one.
Well, like I said, at the time, I think it was just more, okay, we want to make sure we're going to the Mass where we should be going to Mass. And so,
Right.
okay, if I'm going to Mass and it's like, hey, I'm hearing the Apostles' Creed. Oh, wait a minute. Jay's got to take the memo, or what's going on here? Should I leave? Right.
They got the memo, they just ignored it.
Well, that's the thing. And so it's like, it was really more an act to try to make things more unified. Right. But I mean, also raises maybe a dubia in someone's mind. Like, well, wait a minute, am I at the right Mass? So it's actually interesting now because if we talk about our Orthodox brothers and sisters, if we were to go to the divine worship let's say a Greek Orthodox, or go to a Byzantine divine worship, we probably wouldn't know the difference. Except for maybe one or two, maybe very subtle things, you probably wouldn't know. So when it came to when these creeds were developed, it was like, we want to make sure we know.
Well,
That's kind of how it worked.
makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm not going to venture out. I'll stick with what I know.
Okay, perfect. That's fine. Anything else?
A question.
Hmm.
You give a brief summary, and there's a newsworthy thing or not about the SS.
Yeah, SSPX, so the Society of St. Pius X. So this is a society was founded by Archbishop Lefebvre after the Second Vatican Council. The reason that he established this was to kind of maintain the tradition of the church. He had some certain thoughts about Vatican II, maybe more about the spirit of Vatican II than actually what Vatican II promulgated. I think what he really saw after the council was a lot of abuses that were happening. And, one could argue there's a lot of abuses happening today in the Novus Ordo. So he kind of wanted to maintain this fraternity of priests that would uphold the traditions of the old Latin Mass, right? Primarily the Tridentine Mass from the Council of Trent. The Mass that has been celebrated for 500 years up before Vatican II. To the point where Archbishop Lefebvre kind of was rather vocal about his disagreement with things at Vatican II, primarily about new evangelization, the liturgy itself, to the point where in 1988, he wanted to ordain new bishops, consecrate new bishops, because his bishop, he was really the only archbishop at the time. And so in order to maintain the order to go further and start and ordain priests and, that kind of thing, he asked the Roman pontiff to ordain bishops. Actually, I don't know if he ever asked at all. I don't think he even asked at all, actually, to tell you the truth. So in 88, he consecrated 3 bishops outside of the mandate of the Roman pontiff, which by law, and the law was only about 5 years old at this point, but it was 1983, it would cause automatic excommunication. Not only the bishop that was consecrating, or the bishops that were consecrating, but even the bishops that were consecrated. And so that started a kind of the schism with SSPX since then. In 2009, of happy memory Benedict XVI, the Holy Father, lifted the excommunications. And in 2014, I believe, then Pope Francis of happy memory gave faculties to SSPX to hear confession and to witness marriages, which was sort of looked at as like, okay, here's an olive branch, or maybe working back to this communion. One would argue that after the excommunication were lifted, the union was resolved, but it still was this question of irregularity, right? Because, well, there's still these kind of groups that are saying that the only valid mass is the Latin Mass, and the Novus Ordo is not valid. Meaning, if you go to a Novus Ordo Mass, you're not receiving Jesus. That is quite a claim, right? So we're getting to the point now where there have been any new bishops since 1988 consecrated. Those bishops were consecrated in 1988, as we can imagine, even though they were younger then, not so young now. And even Archbishop Lefebvre has now passed away. So they're looking at this as an emergency, that we need bishops in order to maintain this order, to maintain the consecrate priests or ordained priests, consecrate people, and keep the line going. They petitioned Pope Leo to actually consecrate the bishops, and Pope Leo responded with no, right? So they've made a declaration that on July 1st, they will go ahead and consecrate 2 other bishops in defiance of the Holy Father's wishes, which also would, by law, now, of course, the Holy Father can abscond with that. He can do whatever he wants. And that's kind of where we're at right now. It's kind of a wait and see what the Vatican does, or if they even go forward with this. Mm-hmm. But if they were to ordain or consecrate those 2 bishops, they and the consecrating bishop would be automatically excommunicated. So this is looked at as a full-out schism that they're trying to maintain. And I think we could have discussions about like the traditions of the church and upholding those things. But the thing is also we have orders within the church already that do that. We have the Institute of Christ the King. We have the Fraternity of St. Peter, Fraternal Society of St. Peter. These are orders that were established specifically to maintain these traditions. And so the question I think at hand from the Holy See is your ministry necessary, since we already have these other ones? Is it possible for you SSPX priests to be folded into these other orders that are doing what you're doing anyway? I think that's the question at hand. I think, but I mean, even if they were to say, yeah, your ministry is very valid and we want that to happen, you still obedience. And to the point where they recognize the Holy Father as the Pope now, which, praise God. I mean, the whole issue was that it was kind of like this understanding that there hasn't been a Pope since Pius XII. So there wasn't even a recognition of John the 23rd or Paul VI or John Paul I, or, all the way through. So, okay, well, if that's the case, then what is the church, right? You can't have the church without Peter. You can't have the church without the Roman Pontiff. And there have been instances where it's been pointed out where there has been sede vacante, at least periods, and even some long periods without the Pope on the chair, but there has always been a remedy and a way to get the Pope on the chair, right? So there's always been, usually it's been in process. The cardinals are still electing a Pope when these things happen. So I think at this point, they're looking at this as a state of emergency, that in order to actually maintain salvation of souls. And if you think salvation of souls can only happen through the extraordinary form of the Mass, you could argue 2 points. Say, yeah, okay, well, maybe we need more of that, which case you are totally valid in doing what you're doing. Or we already have that, in which case you're really just causing more harm. And I think the church's perspective is, especially if you're going to go through with this, you're going to be causing more spiritual harm. Because the other thing to be reminded of in this case, because they're irregular, meaning they're not in line totally with the law, those bishops don't have any jurisdiction. So if, let's say, I had an order where I was given a mandate let's say it was a legal mandate from the Roman pontiff that, hey, now Bishop Madden, hopefully that never happens. Just put that out there right now. But Bishop Madden, you have now the authority to gather bishops and consecrate as many bishops as you want. And I go off and I consecrate 100 bishops. Okay, just on the surface, it seems like, okay, great. Having more people in that position seems like a good idea, right? We can actually keep the priesthood going and, do all they have the fullness of orders. What a wonderful thing. Yeah, but what does a bishop do? The point of a bishop is to be the head of a church. And that church has a jurisdiction. And I've just consecrated 100 bishops. What am I going to do with them? Who are they going to be over? Even if they all had a title or titulacy, well, do we have enough titulacies to cover them? So it is causing a little bit of a spiritual harm in that regard. Even if they were to do it validly, you would say, well, is that a good idea?
So do they have to have a bishop for them that comes from one of their other bishops? Can somebody else?
Yeah. So okay,
run this society.
Let's say you had a Bishop Strickland, for instance, or I don't know, Cardinal Burke. I know that wouldn't happen, but let's just say, for instance, they help in the consecration, right? In order to consecrate bishops by law, you still have to have a mandate from the Roman pontiff to do that. Mm-hmm. So even if they were to do that, they would also automatically be excommunicated too. Mm-hmm. Now, here's the thing, right? When it comes to SPX, it's valid. They have a valid priesthood. Even if the bishop were actually consecrated within the order, they would be validly consecrated bishops, but they would be highly illicit and they would be excommunicated. And so, for the faithful, what does that mean for them? Well, okay, it would be kind of the same kind of understanding as we would for maybe any other schismatic group. Let's say the old Catholics, for instance, or the Polish National Catholic Church, or even the Orthodox. So should I go to Mass there? Answer that would be no, unless you actually have some emergency. So maybe it's the only Mass that you can go to or something, right? Fine. But in general, no, we should avoid celebrate Mass there because they're not in line with Rome.
I'm just waiting. Well,
yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, I think there was a lot of hope that they would be reconciled. And it seems like even Pope Francis was on the way to, kind of doing that. But I think there were still this kind of questions of like, okay, well, do you recognize the Pope? Yeah, we do. Great. Okay, so that means you owe obedience to him. Well, I don't know. He doesn't want us to consecrate bishops.
We don't agree with it.
I don't like that. I mean, that's kind of at the heart of it. It'd be like if Archbishop Zancy tells me, Father Madden, we're gonna move you for whatever reason. Well, hold on, Archbishop. Canon law says I can't be moved within 6 years, so Okay, even canon law says that. My archbishop that I've owed obedience to has asked me to do this. So okay.
Well, you would do it.
Of course I would do it. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I pledge obedience to him.
Oh, no.
That's a vow I made. That's an honor, right? Yeah, I mean, that's when we talk about obedience is acts of faith and love. It's not blind. I mean, it's okay if the Archbishop would come to me and say, Father Man, I want to move you. It would be okay for me to say, well, can I ask why? I'm not saying no. I'm just saying, can I understand? That's okay. And he's like, we really need you over here. Okay. I'm trusting the Holy Spirit's working for you, Archbishop. So, of course.
I've always questioned in my mind, growing up Catholic, being in a lot of Catholic churches and the pastors. And some of the pastors, they would be there 15, 20 years or so. I think that's entirely too long. I think you get in such a rut, such a routine that you even need to change. You know?
I think there's two schools of thought there. I mean, I guess in some ways, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Right. So in other words, if you have a pastor that's been in a place for 15 years, but hey, you know what? We're booming now with our OCA is full. We have baptisms every week. Our school is going really well. We're teaching people. We're bringing them in. You know, we're financially secure. Well, it'd be really hard for me to actually put someone else in there then.
Well, may he rest in peace, Richard Servan. The homily you got for Father's Day in 1976 is the same homily you were getting in Father's Day in 1986 if he was still there. That
Well,
never changed.
That's yeah. I mean, so here's the thing, right?
I
I understand that. I understand that, Ken, because like, you know, it is tempting sometimes for me, especially like I've been ordained now for going on 8 years, which, you know, if you include the transitional deacon year, that's a little while. And so I've have some files of my homilies that I keep, and I go, and actually when I prepare for my homily, I always look back on those old ones just to see like what I've talked about before, or maybe is there something that kind of sparks something there? Or do I want to do something completely different? Or is there an aspect I want to cover? It's sometimes tempting though. Like, oh, that was all right.
He was there for 9 years.
Plagiarize yourself.
Well, I was like, is it plagiarizing? Was actually yourself?
And there
I
we
mean,
go.
yeah, right. I mean, well, especially like coming into a new place. Like, now maybe you have a good argument. Like, if someone's been there for a while, maybe I should be a little more original.
He
Sure,
was there
fine.
for 9 years, and he was very disappointed when they moved him. He was not a happy camper about it at all. He was hoping he would be there a lot longer than 9 years.
Well, I mean, I think that back in the day that was probably very common. You know, I mean, I think here in St. Louis, even you would have some guys that were found to perish and they would stay there the entire time until they died. We actually have one right now that's kind of like that. He founded a parish out in St. Charles, and he's been there since the very beginning. Probably going to end up retiring there, if not dying there, right? So, I mean, it's one of these things where I think there's two. I think you can argue either way, but I think you have to look at the fruit. And if you're actually bringing a lot of fruit, I think as any administrator, whether it be the Archbishop, Pope, anyone, I think you'd have to look at that and say, "Ooh, do I want to change this?" I mean, of course, you'd probably have to change it eventually, or you could just hope that the next guy comes in before that happens. And it'll be his problem. That may be the case too. But for the most part, yeah, I mean, it can be difficult. I mean, if something's not going right, that makes it a little bit easier. Like, all right, yeah, we really probably shouldn't put you somewhere else. Fine. But if things are going well, I don't know.
Back on the SS.
PX? Yeah.
So so you have some SSPX seminarians, they're going through seminary to learn that. Then when they're ready to be ordained a priest, any bishop can do
Any
that,
bishop
right?
would, yes.
They can be still ordained
Yep.
priests of
Mhm.
that society.
Yeah.
So why do they want a bishop?
Why do they want a bishop?
Why do they want?
Okay, so I mean, I don't know all the details as far as that's concerned. So I mean, I'm not well versed in what the in workings of the SSPX, but I think my understanding of it would be, it's really a way to actually foster more priests who could potentially become bishops and still uphold those traditions. So in other words, if I had a bishop, or I had a bunch of priests that I was forming in a particular theology or particular ecclesiology or particular whatever, and I'm looking at these guys saying, you guys might be future bishops here, and as you become a bishop, you have more influence, and you can actually start imposing certain things that would be, again, all in line with tradition and what the church teaches. Sure, fine, but you know, maybe eventually we can stamp out this nasty Novus Ordo
Oh,
and actually do what we think the church should be doing from the first place. Now, I mean, that may be rather uncharitable. I don't know. But I think to your point, I mean, you can't have priests without bishops. And the issue, especially with the irregularity of the order, maybe the question you're really underlying this is why don't they just wait till they're unified with the church again and they can have as many priests and bishops as they want?
I mean, they can still have as many priests now, right?
Right.
So they can
Yeah, they
have
can.
bishops.
Sure, but also too, but even with that order, okay, what is what is your actual like ministry?
Yeah.
Right. So okay, yeah, we celebrate the Latin Mass. Great. In the place where you celebrate it, at the one location, maybe that church is full, and maybe the argument is, well, yeah, so we have so many people now, we have to build another church, another parish, and blah blah. Well, okay, but that still has to be under jurisdiction of a local bishop. So like even the Jesuits, right? Now, well, they're not necessarily a great example because they're not required to have, they're not allowed to have bishops. But I don't know, let's say you have a Franciscan order, right? And they have bishops and stuff. And so, well, okay, well, they can't just go into someone else's territory and just start a church or a parish unless they themselves are the bishop for that diocese, right? So like in Boston, for instance, or right now, actually, I think in North Carolina, is it Franciscan who's the bishop there that's causing all the struggle? I can't remember. I think it's more part of an order. So maybe there, yeah, hey, Franciscan brothers, come on in, start a new parish, fine, whatever. But they can't go here in St. Louis and be like, okay, Rosansky, we're taking over here. We're going to have a parish. That doesn't work that way. This is my boundary. Stay on your side.
Yeah.
If I want you, I'll call you. You know, that kind of
Permission
thing.
from your local bishop.
Right. I mean, and again, that may be rather uncharitable, but you could see if, okay, let's say an SSPX bishop, let's say they're online, they're fine. They now get assigned to a diocese. Well, it's very possible that, you know, that particular bishop now say, you know, we're not doing the Novus Ordo anymore. We're going to do Trinity Mass at all, and we're going to form people in the seminary to do that, and that's how we're going to do it. Okay, you know, I don't think maybe some people might not have a problem with that, but there might be people that would, and does that cause strife? Could. I mean, so you see the two extremes. You can have very, very ultimate, you know, way past the boundary of like orthodoxy, saying, okay, it's going. I mean, maybe go even further. We're just going to do the Julian Mass from here on out. Does anyone even know what that looked like? I mean, I don't know, you know, so we're just going to do that from here on. And then you have the other side, which is like, yeah, do whatever. Take out the altar rails. We don't care. You know, hey, let's just take out the altar. What are you that for? That just divides people. You can see both sides. The church, though, is always in the middle.
I thought we were supposed to have harmony.
Harmony is a
In heaven.
transcendental, right?
Harmony in heaven.
But here's the thing, right? Has there ever been harmony in the church?
No.
Right. I mean, there's never been the case. That's always been the case. There has been disharmony. Yeah, it's it's one we all strive for. We strive for unity and harmony and goodness and truth, right? Beauty. But that's never been perfect in the church ever.
It's where we're going,
Yeah.
not where we're at, right?
I tell people, you have to learn to keep your mouth shut and your ears open. I was down to Pink Sisters during their 1 year, their Novena masses, because I ushered down there. Well, anyway, Archbishop, I think it was Carlson who had done the mass. And people were talking to him afterwards or something. I don't know if he made this comment to the people or if he made it to a priest that happened to be there. But the comment was, we wish the heck that Burke would stay the hell out of St. Louis, because he was coming to St. Louis every year during the summer, and he went to the seminary and he was disrupting the seminary and all, and they just wish he would stay away. Well, I thought to myself, well, you're the guy in charge. If you don't want him here, tell him not to come.
Yeah. Well, here's the struggle with Archbishop with Cardinal Burke. Cardinal Burke is still a priest of the archdiocese. So you can't tell a priest of the archdiocese, get out. You can say get out for a time, but
I mean, he made no bones in saying there were a lot of people standing around and they heard the remark.
Yeah.
You know, and
yeah.
But
No, I mean sometimes, yeah, imprudence will lie. I mean, he's still a brother bishop, and so yeah, okay, Actually, it's kind of funny. I think I told this before, but like when I first got here, I got a call from Bishop Rice. He said, "Oh, just so you know, I need your permission to actually anoint somebody in your boundary." I'm like, "What?" I was like, "No, I'll take care." But I mean, that's just the way the church works. It's like if there is this level of brotherhood within the presbyterate, the episcopacy, but that doesn't mean they'll get on your nerves. I mean, my brother priests, we don't see eye to eye on everything. Right? We still love each other, want the best things for each other, and we'll still work with each other.
I guess it's just like being married, where you get along with your spouse or if you got siblings.
I think what that shows, Ken, is that every vocation leads to the cross.
I knew a nun who taught at the grade school. When I was in grade school, I didn't have her. I was a little bit older. She had the younger kids. And she eventually left the Notre Dame order. Mm-hmm. And she said to her dying day, the only reason she left was she says, "I cannot live in a community with a bunch of women. It's too difficult." And that was her reason she was telling everybody she left.
Wow, I would have probably discerned that a little bit before it took. She actually took final vows and everything too.
I don't think she had the final.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, that way is good.
Was real young.
Yeah. Well, yeah. No, I mean, in that ways, I think that's actually like a good thing. Like you're discerning well in that case. Yeah, I've learned I can't do that. Wonderful.
I know I've lost track of her because it ended up years later at presentation when my son went there the first year. Here these teachers come down, and here's this teacher come over. She saw me, recognized, talking to me, and I should have known her, but I did not. Last time I saw her, she was in habit. She was in street clothes and all. And she taught a presentation a couple of years, whatever, and eventually moved on. But I saw her later in life, and I know she's dead now.
Yeah.
But, anyway,
I still experienced CBC. Like we would have, every year it was like brother so and so. The next year they were Mr. So and so. And they never took final vows, but I mean, that shows good discernment. I mean, at the time, you don't really know what's going on. I mean, same thing when guys leave the seminary. There are some things like, oh, that's probably a good idea. Some are just like, I don't get it. I don't know why you're leaving, but okay. And some are just like, okay, yeah. That makes sense.
We all do things in life. Sometimes we maybe should have thought more about it.
Well, I think that's show that there's a reason why they have these orders, the seminary. They have this time to do that, right? Because going to the seminary, going into the novitiate, going into these things the orders have, that's all they are is time and discernment. I know Renee she knows that very, very well, right? Mm-hmm. So it's these things that they occur. I think it was always interesting that for someone discerning entering an order or entering priesthood or whatever it may be, usually the church asks you to discern for at least 8 to 10 years. How long do you have to discern before you get married?
Yeah.
6 months. 6 months,
Wow.
right? Now, maybe that's because one's eternal, the other one is, just during the lifetime. I don't know. But still, that seems like a very interesting thing.
You're only going to mess up a little bit.
That's right.
A lot of the people.
That's right.
We broke all those rules. We had our first date in New Year's Eve of 76 or 75. Engaged April the 1st and married October the 29th of 76, and married almost 48 years.
There you go. Which also is those things can be dispensed in
But
some
we
ways
were
too.
older.
Yeah.
I mean, I was 32 when I got married. She was 4 years younger.
Yeah. No, I think it's always just an interesting thing, and a lot of that's determined by the local bishop. They're the ones who give that guideline. I mean, it could be different in other places, but either way, I think imagine we got engaged. I have to wait 10 years before we actually get married. Okay. Right. So, yeah, I don't know. I think there's a reason for these things for sure. But we usually hear those stories. I know there was a lot of friends I had in the seminary that end up leaving, and it was like, man, I don't know what's going on there. There's, I'm going to trust that God has a plan for him, but also, I don't know. Yeah. Actually, I heard good news the other day. One of the gentlemen I knew in the seminary, he was younger than I. That was really rather common though for people younger than me. But he also entered a little bit later, and now I understand he went back to the seminary, but in his home place. So that was good to hear. I was happy about that. So I think it will show that the doors can be open, but we also have to be discerning what we do.
Yeah, because we had a little town I grew up in, there were several ladies that went ahead and joined different orders and became nuns. We never did, we had 2 or 3 guys go into the seminary, but they never stayed. And the one, he had 1 year to go for ordination and they asked him to leave. And he was brokenhearted and his grandmother was more than furious.
Yeah, that seems really late.
He was 1 year away from being ordained and they asked him to
Or
Yeah,
being a deacon?
deacon.
No, a priest.
Oh, so he was already ordained a deacon?
Oh, they had to
Oh.
petition Rome for that.
Yeah, that's
But
you have to usually in those
There's
situations
something
you have to have a grave moral reason.
this was many, many years ago.
Yeah, that's
Still.
wow.
If he was ordained a deacon.
Because he would come in the summer, he would come home, and he would assist the priest there at mass as a deacon,
Well, I mean that's the other thing too. Like you can't once you're ordained deacon, you can't get rid of the deacon. I mean you're always going to be a deacon. But it's also that usually they usually laicize. There has to be some really, really grave reason.
I heard he became a school teacher in St. Louis County in one of the public school districts. I don't know if that's true or not.
Yeah, I'd say a lot of the guys that left the seminary, there's only maybe a handful of them that I really have to keep track with and keep in contact with. That's rather unfortunate, I think. But I think also sometimes for some guys, it just becomes I don't know if it's an aspect of shame, but also like just kind of a bad memory.
I think that's my sister. She knows where he's at. If he's still, I'm sure he's still living because he was younger than me,
Mm.
and that. And, well,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
I knew his
unusual.
family, his grandmother and grandfather, his mother and dad, and brothers and sisters.
Well, also too was he went in like young, like after high school, like in yeah.
I don't know if he finished high school or went in right after. I
Okay.
don't remember all of that.
Well, I also knew too, like a lot of guys sometimes they do that. They do go in and try to even go all the way through. Sometimes because it's my family wants me, not necessarily I want to either, right?
Yeah.
Going through the motions.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure his grandmother, always wanted a priest in the family, and she saw this as a good.
Yeah,
job
I
of
mean-
all her grandkids maybe, and I'm sure she encouraged him.
Yeah. And again, encouragement is one thing, but also like that doesn't necessarily mean you should be ordained. If you don't want it, you shouldn't be.
Should figure that out before.
Right. Yeah. Right. And I mean, so maybe that was the reason. I don't know. But like, I recall there was one guy, he was ordained a deacon. After he got his degree, he up and left. And he wasn't from the United States. He actually ended up leaving the country. Well, come to find out that, he had a girlfriend and actually had a son on the way. I was like, oh, okay. Well, there you go. So who knows,
Yeah,
Well,
life's full of all kind of challenges.
indeed. Well, any other questions, comments, concerns, heresies? Anybody maybe online who want to ask a question? Otherwise, we will adjourn for the night. Come back
next Tuesday.
Oh, yeah, Tuesday. So we're going to do Ash Make next Tuesday between 2:30 and 4:30. We are actually I gave we usually have a Sacramento prep. I gave them off though because it was President's Day weekend. Whatever. Yeah, we'll meet here at usual time 6:30, and maybe we'll have some Mardi Gras themed things. We'll see what happens. All right.
Oh.
Well, then, otherwise, we'll see everyone next week. God bless.
I told myself yesterday, get the palm off the wall and take it up to St. Anne.